Hello, everyone, and welcome to Liverpool Transfer Talk Show on Football Talk Podcast. My name's Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. The last 24 hours have been quite chaotic in the social media space. Lots of rumors flying around. Ornstein and Romano dropping bombers left, right, and center. So let's break down the rumors. I'll also give you my take on these recent stories. So let's start with the big one, and that is Jeremie Frimpong. Now, the current rumor circulating is that Liverpool are in advanced talks with Jeremie Frimpong and his representatives in terms of his reps. Apparently, one of them posted a picture of them arriving in Manchester, even though I know for Liverpool, but I think it might just be different airports that they've um, used their flights on, and I think they've captioned saying working or at work or something like that. So clearly the reps are busy, and just before the stream, there was a tweet from Fabrizio Romano. So let me bring that up on the screen. Uh, and let me read it out for you guys as well. So understand talks between Liverpool and Jeremy Frimpong's camp over personal terms have advanced again today. So the rumor yesterday was that they've already discussed terms, or they are discussing terms, and there's been a latest sort of update on that. Players always been keen on the move, and Liverpool are progressing on salary, length of contract, every detail of the agreement, deal closed. So for me, that's very, very positive news there. And for me, I've mentioned it before a couple of times. I've even done a dedicated show on ping pong. So if you haven't seen it, please make sure to catch up with it on our channel. I think he'd be a fantastic signing for us in every shape and form. So from a financial point of view, which of course you have to discuss, especially when it comes to Liverpool transfers and our business operations under FSG, it's a no-brainer. It's £30 million, just under 30, £29.5 million release clause that can be paid in installments. So that's FSG rubbing their hands with. That's their type of deal, and he's homegrown because he spent uh, a good chunk of his career at Man City. I think he joined there when he was 9 years old. So he's qualified under the sort of homegrown quota rules there. So homegrown. So that's another tick box there because you need to replace Trent Alexander-Arnold's position in this team and squad, but also within the homegrown quota. So that's another tick box. In terms of what he brings to the pitch, he's versatile. He's currently playing as a right wing back slash right midfielder for Leverkusen and has done for the last couple of years, but has played at right back for Man City and Celtic and played right wing for the Netherlands. So three areas where I feel like he will definitely dominate, and that's the key word there, dominate. I think if he was to sign for Liverpool, he's not going to play as a traditional right back, but what he's going to dominate that right hand side and make sure it's his zone. So whether it's from an attacking point of view or defensively, he's the one that's going to occupy that side and make sure that players around him can benefit of his directness and his raw pace on that right hand side because I feel like it's going to add a different dimension to how we play. So, for example, with him bombing down that right hand side further up the pitch, it allows Mohamed Salah to invert inside and occupy the hot zone that Arne Slot likes to phrase. So that's pretty much around the edge of the box. and that is, Salah's range where he likes to shoot from the edge of the box and try and score some curlers with finesse and all that sort of stuff. So that gives him the chance to occupy more central position, but also do less running to the tracking back. And you've got Frimpong who, has a fantastic engine and will bomb down that right hand side all day long. And if he is in a more advanced position, you'll have a DM like Gravenberg or McAllister or whoever we sign. Hopefully, we do add someone in that department as well to cover his position in counter attacks, or Kanate can come in and also help out as well. So in terms of how he currently plays, it's not that too dissimilar to what Trent is playing. And now people argue and say, well, they're not like for like in terms of what they bring to the pitch, in terms of ability. No, they're not. Trent was a special player where you know, his passing range was to a very extreme level, and that because of that, we gave him the license to invert and be an influence from a central position, especially in the last couple of years. That's what we've done. Whereas Frimpong, he's probably going to be what Trent Alexander-Arnold was when he first broke into the team, and that was to be a bit more of a out and out fullback where you bomb down the byline and make sure you are providing creativity, so i.e. crosses into the box, rather than, coming inside and, spraying balls around the pitch. So that's what Frimpong's going to bring. They might not be like for like in terms of their skill set, but in terms of how we set up, the right back will be the player that's a bit more advanced and will get into more attacking positions. So it's going to be very interesting. I feel like it's something that can work. I know a lot of fans still have reservations about his defending. I think he's got a higher ratio this season than Trent Alexander-Arnold, so he's beating him in that aspect. But if you look at the history of fullbacks and the ones that we would, give strong praise or accolades in terms of them being the best of their era, those are generally attacking fullbacks, right? No one's going to tell me Gary Neville is the best right back ever because that's not true. I'm far from it. You name the likes of Cafu for right back, and for left back, name like Roberto Carlos, those type of players. They're the ones that spring to mind in terms of what fullback brings to the table. So I feel like Frimpong will just give us a different dimension on that right hand side. And of course, with Conor Bradley, he can still offer what Frimpong does. I think he's not going to match him for pace because Frimpong is electric. It's not even a comparison. But stylistically, Bradley offers what Frimpong does in terms of occupying that right hand side, being a bit more on the front foot, and try and you know go as far down the line as possible and cut back passes and hit crosses um, to our strikers. So for me, I think it's a great deal. I think it's a no-brainer. Some fans are, you know, critical about his defending, but let's be honest, he's been playing as a right midfielder slash right winger for the last few years. We can't really judge him on his defending, right? Because we haven't seen it in high abundance. It's been more so where you've seen him in positions where he's done one-on-one tackles and all that sort of stuff. But remember, when Arne Slot joined the club last year, that's one of the things he worked on with Trent, one-on-one defending. So Trent, for me, improved that part of his game this season. So why can't Frimpong do the same? Why can't our coaches, train up Frimpong and make sure he's a bit more assertive in one-on-one duels? Because it all comes down to coaching. You're not naturally born to be, a master in one-on-one defending. It's taught. It's something that you learn from, coaching. It's something you gain from experience. So I feel like what they've done with Trent. I think Frimpong can apply that as well. The difference between Frimpong and Trent is that if the winger somehow goes past Frimpong has better recovery speed than in comparison to what Trent did. Because Trent, running back, he doesn't have that speed. Some will even go far to say that he's lazy and he didn't really want to bust a gut to make sure he tracked back and got that winger. So, it's the perception is how you see the game. So for me, I'm not saying this is bulletproof that it's going to work, but I'm excited by this proposition of having a very attack-minded fullback. And also, if you look at the current rumors as well, and I'm not saying every rumor is true or you can always get some sort of indication in terms of what the club are trying to recruit in the summer. And it's definitely an attacking fullback. So for me, this deal, it's got a lot of ticks. It's going to have one or two question marks in terms of defending, but I'm all for it. So feel free to let me know in the comments what you feel about this rumor. Some fans still suggested the smoke screen that we're not actually going for Frimpong. We might end up signing another fullback. I'm not quite so sure. I feel like, if we're deep in the sort of advanced stage of discussions, and I'm not saying this is gospel, but I just feel like there's a lot of people suggesting that, there is strong interest in the player. I'm sure the club do like the player, so, only time will tell. But I'm quite confident that this deal will get concluded. In fact, I probably feel like it will get concluded very soon. Um, who knows? The next time I do a transfer talk show, which will be same time next week, sorry, uh, I might be confirming Ping Pong as an official signing. So you never know. It won't be made official by the club, but I think in terms of social journalists confirming on social media, we might get that perspective there. So yeah, watch this space. Let's see what happens with regards to Jeremy Frimpong. Does he become a Liverpool player or not? I think he will, but let's see what happens in the coming weeks. Now, on to the next player, and that is Florian Wirtz. Now, good old David Ornstein dropped a bomber today that almost broke the internet. So let me bring up the tweet um, that definitely got us Liverpool fans excited. And this is the tweet here. So let me read it out loud for you guys. Liverpool make contact with Florian Wirtz camp to express interest in signing the playmaker if he leaves Bayer Leverkusen and is keen on moving to England. LFC admiration long-standing, but unclear whether 22-year-old plans to exit Bayer Leverkusen or Germany. So mixed indication in terms of Florian Wirtz's stance. Now, the rumor is that he's actually come over to the UK, flew into the UK yesterday. Apparently, he went to the AXA training center yesterday. I don't know if there's any photos, but if someone managed to creep behind the fences and take a picture, yeah, send it through. But that's the rumor that he's been over to the UK, came over to Liverpool and Manchester. Of course, Manchester City being a very strong suit of the player. They've been linked to him for quite some time. I think they've earmarked him as Kevin De Bruyne's replacement. So no surprise in terms of him being heavily linked with a move to Man City. But then you've also got by Munich. So it's a strange one. I feel like he'd probably come over to, you know, weigh his options to see what the right move is for him and his career. I doubt he'll stay at Leverkusen with Alonso leaving. He's definitely going on to pursue a different club this summer. His parents are, I believe, his agents, so that's why they came over with him to, assess the different clubs and different options for him. So I don't know about this one. This one it sounds too good to be true. That's my sort of initial reaction to seeing the tweet. Of course, I was a little bit gobsmacked, like, whoa, Florian Wirtz? Like, can you imagine that? Because we've already been in discussions with another Bayer Leverkusen player in ping pong. So, can it be 2 out of 2? Do we get two players for Bayer Leverkusen? For me, it's a pipe dream. I don't see it being a reality, unfortunately. I feel like the more realistic deal will end up being him staying in Germany and signing for Bayern Munich. Now, it will depend on the financial package. If Man City were to, you know, blow the waters and offer them a crazy amount of money, then if the player is swayed by the project that was presented to him by Man City yesterday, then it could be an option for him. Um, but it's a difficult one to say. But in terms of Ornstein reporting this sort of news regarding local transfers, you definitely have to take it with a pinch of salt, only because his track record hasn't been great. Um, I'll name a few players. Caicedo, he's the one that broke the news. Never happened. Lavia, he broke that news. It never happened. Zubimendi, he broke the news last summer. It never happened. And in more recent months, Kvaratskhelia, he was the one that reported that interest, and that never happened either. So, you know, there's also arguments to say that I saw some tweet earlier on where he was the first one to break the Szoboszlai news before he joined to Liverpool, and they're saying the sort of the way it was tweeted is similar sort of format for this Florian Wirtz tweets that came out today. I think people are just clutching. I don't see there being sort of any sort of truth to that story of Wirtz and joining Liverpool. I just think, you know, I don't mean to be rude. I think David Ornstein's just been a bit optimistic here, where he's released a tweet and he knows he's going to get a lot of engagement from Liverpool fans because we're active right now. We're very intrigued into what the club are going to do. Look, this tweet alone has attained 4 million views. So, make it what you will. But I feel like he'll most likely join Bayern Munich. That's going to be my prediction. But I know it's a move that definitely you know put a step in our walk today because it's a move that will really shake the world if it was to ever materialize. Because for me, Florian Wirtz is one of the best number 10s in world football, and there's not that many number 10s nowadays. But the way he plays, he can play that central role very well. Can even play false nine. Can even play on the left side if required. So what we'll do now, I'll quickly present some potential lineups if he was to join Liverpool and just whet appetite even further, even though I don't think it's going to be realistic. But we can have some fun and do that quickly. So let's move over to the graphics. So let's start with the opening sort of lineup. Now I've put in two players here that I feel like are most likely to join. And that is Frimpong and Gyokeres. I haven't replaced Jota in the lineup just because I have no idea what striker we're going to go for. The dream is Isak, but I've heard today that he's going to have an operation at the end of the season. Alvarez seems, a bit far-fetched right now as well. So I don't know who the striker is, but once we get some news in the coming week, then I can, present a potential new number 9 in our team. But for now, we'll have Jota as the main striker. So naturally, he'd come into the team and replace Szoboszlai in that advanced midfielder role / number 10 role. And that's not to say, Szoboszlai is out of favour and just put him on the bench and he's never going to be involved again. If this was, a real life lineup there, Wirtz and Szoboszlai will be rotating quite a lot. So for me, it's not to dismiss Szoboszlai's effort this season because I think he's done well. I just feel like there's areas of his game that he really needs to improve, i.e., improve his goals and assists and be a bit more direct in his decision making. There's times where he's in the final third and he's very undecisive, so he should be laying off the ball to a better option. Or there's been a number of occasions where I feel like he's actually not taking a shot and he's a bit gun shy, ends up giving it to Mohamed Salah, the safety pass there, which can get a bit frustrating, especially when you're playing full flow. It kind of kills the mood when you just put it out wide, and then Salah's not a one-on-one, master. Like he's going to get past the fullback, but more than likely he's going to try and cross it in somehow. So for me, it kind of breaks down the play a little bit. With Wirtz in this team, he gives that creativity, that turn of speed, but he also finds himself in great goal scoring position. So for me, uh, this would be a great lineup if Wirtz to join, and I think he'd be an automatic start. So you make room for players like Florian Wirtz. One thing I hear even highlight is what would be the transfer fee. There's no transfer fee that has been, moved out loud in terms of what clubs will need to pay to sign Wirtz this season. From what I've read in terms of research, I think he costs around 120 million. So if we were to sign him, then we're pretty much, spending big, and we're probably going to spend all our budget, or most of our budget, on this player here. So, if he was to come, he needs to be a game changer. So therefore, he's 100% going to be a starter. Now, as I said, if he was to be bought and he was costing Liverpool around that 120 million pound region, things will, Liverpool need to try and gather the money somehow in order to do other transfers, right? So the most likely situation would be to sell Darwin Núñez and possibly Luis Diaz. And if you were to sell Diaz to Saudi, for example, then you end up getting 70 mil roughly. And Darwin Núñez, if he goes to Saudi, though, that's another 70 mil there. So that's 140 mil. So that would be enough to pay for Wirtz. But what do you do in regards to Luis Diaz? Do you replace him with another player, or can we replace him internally? So the solution that I've come up with, and would be my choice, um, if Diaz Nunes was sold, Wirtz comes in as the number 10, this is what I would do. I would play Szoboszlai on the left wing. Now, that might sound a bit peculiar because we haven't played him in that role in this team. But prior to joining Liverpool, that's the position he predominantly played for Red Bull Leipzig. He played on the left wing, and his role model I saw into it was Cristiano Ronaldo, who we all know, is the guy when it comes to that left wing position. So I know he can play that role because he's shown me over the years that he's more than capable of doing it. He produces a good output in terms of goals and assists in that position. And one thing that I don't feel like would be a fact, would be considered in this situation, which I feel like is a very plus point and a great advantage for us, is the fella at left back, Gyokeres. So you've got two players that probably have a good understanding from the national team and will have a good chemistry as well on the pitch. So that solidifies our left hand side, which I feel like has been quite weak over the years, with Robertson dropping down in terms of his awareness and his attacking instinct. I feel like he hasn't really built a great partnership with Luis Diaz in the team. Sometimes, if Robertson's overlapping, Diaz just finds himself in weird position. He doesn't invert, and vice versa. So this season's been a little bit better. I think they have improved on that. But when Diaz first joined the club, it definitely was something that was not flowing as well as it should be. It wasn't, the way Robbo and Mane were, because that was like, they were in sync all the time. So for me, this would be a partnership that works, because on a football pitch, it's all about partnerships. And I feel like Cherki on the left, Sabozza on the left would be fine. And then you've got Wirtz as well playing that number 10 role. Depending on position, if that's not working, just swap these two guys, because Wirtz can play on the left and they can drift inside as well. So we can definitely play this position. This is not something that's out of the ordinary. So this would be my choice if this was to become a reality, to play Szoboszlai on the left, and it'll be Wirtz on the right and on the middle, sorry, and then you've got Salah on the right. And in terms of your backups, you have Biko as a backup for Szoboszlai. Wirtz, you probably have Jones as the backup, and then for Salah, it will be Harvey Elliott, or it could be Chiesa, or maybe we sign a Cherki, you know, dreaming there, I know, but just putting it out there. So maybe another player that can play that position there. Now in terms of the lineup, so this current lineup, I feel like will work because it's got a good balance, in my opinion, and I also feel like it will give us a different dimension. So Salah, we know, has predominantly played as a right winger, but due to his age and his current form right now, I feel like he's better suited to play a bit more inside. So what would happen is, because we've got two, attacking fullbacks, you'll have these guys bombing down the flanks, and they'll be the creative outlets. So Frimpong will be there, and then you have Perkins, and then you'll have like a quartet of these four players finding themselves in great position and interchanging as well. So it'll be a different way of playing, slightly different to PSG, but I feel like it could definitely work. Very attack minded as well, I'm assuming, but it's something you can't really rule out. Another option that could work as well is playing Florian Wirtz as a false nine. So this would be the team if this was a false nine. You have Salah on the right. Suppose that as your number 10, Gakpo on the left, and Wirtz as a false nine. But the only thing that I would think of is that that would be the formation on paper. But I think the way the teams will set up, I can see it being where these two end up forming like a two up top, and then you've got Salah and Gakpo being more inside. I won't say inside, but more attacking midfielders, and then you've got these fullbacks not occupying the right side, but in a more advanced position. So, and because they've left all that space, you've got the likes of Gravenberg and McAllister covering for them. That can also be playmakers from a deep role. So then you end up having this Christmas tree looking formation, uh, and it seems like it's all attack attack. So that would be during the game. It wouldn't be a static formation or formation we play from the first minute. As the game evolves, it can be this way. And then 'cause you've got Salah, who'll be central. He'll be focusing on getting the ball from ping pong and trying to score goals. So he'll be in that kind of position. And then you've got Kirkhead, same situation here as well. And so both that gives him the freedom to roam around and take shots on goals. And it's the same for West. And they can both interchange as well. They're both able to play on both sides of the pitch. So for me, it could work in terms of how they set up. But having said that, this is just a bit of fun. I don't know if it's going to be a realistic option for Liverpool, but only time will tell. Now, let's move on to the next rumor that's been circulating again, and that is Xavi Simons. Now, the current rumor, in fact, there was a tweet that came earlier on today. Let me bring that up on the screen. Um, so this was from Fabrizio Romano today, and he said Xavi Simons' decision has been made. He's ready to leave Red Bull Leipzig this summer. Plan confirmed as reported in the recent months. He's ready for a new chapter with top Premier League clubs and buying all attentive to the situation. Red Bull Leipzig aware of the player's plan. Now, he's a player that's been continuously linked with a move to Liverpool. Now, how will I feel if he was to become a Liverpool signing? I think he's a good player. I do like him. I like what he brings to the table. He's quick, he's dynamic, he's got a good shot in him as well. Very versatile, can play in different positions on the pitch. Predominantly a number 10, in my opinion, but can comfortably play on the left wing and on the right wing. So he would bring that versatility to our squad. He wouldn't be a starter, if I'm being brutally honest. He would be a player off the bench. And pretty much what we had wanted or expected from Chiesa. Because Chiesa was brought in to challenge for that right wing spot, but also be an option for the number 10 and that left wing position as well. So I think if Xavi Simons was to be brought on, he would be replacing Chiesa in the squad. And is that an upgrade? I don't know. Because what Chiesa brings to the table, I feel like he can be one of the best wingers on form. But will we ever see that kind of level form again? I'm not so sure. I don't think that's the same player that we're witnessing nowadays. So this one could be a smart signing here, but me personally, I would like to see a different profile instead of Xavi Simons. Uh, and I'll go on to the next player, which I'm going to discuss in a great transition there. And it's Rayan Cherki. I feel like he would be more suited for what I vision for the team. So a player that can challenge for that number 10 role. And, if depending on opposition, we don't feel like Cherki is the right one to play number 10 role, he could be a great option for the right wing position as well. So he he can actually play left wing. I have seen him play left wing, especially for the France under 21. So he can play in that position. So he pretty much brings everything what Xavi Simons brings to the table. But I feel like in terms of the eye test, in terms of what he brings to the pitch, he's a sensational football. Honestly, he's such a joy to watch. He will definitely get us off our seats whenever he gets the ball. He's a maverick type of player, a player that does the outrageous skills, but is still very effective. He's got double digits in terms of assists this season for Lyon. And for me, he's ready to make that next move. I know he was linked to move to Fulham, and I think there was interest from Spain as well last season. But in the end, I think he rejected that Fulham move. That was quite a strong move that was happening last summer. And today, the reports are suggesting that he's available for a price of £22.5 million, which is absolute peanuts in this day and age. So for me, if Liverpool aren't all over this, there is something wrong because, well, we all love a bargain, and FSG love opportunistic signing. He's the one right there. And this might sound crazy, but I'm going to say it out loud. We've just highlighted Florian Wirtz in terms of what he brings to the table. Fantastic player, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like that's a realistic target because of the amount of money involved in terms of the transfer fee and even the wages and all that sort of stuff. I don't think Cherki is too far away from Wirtz in terms of quality. I don't think he's quite up to Wirtz's level, but he's not far off. Especially as there's not a lot of number 10s nowadays. So I feel like, Cherki is a special player. He brings something different to the table. And the difference between the two, ability wise, is not that far apart. What the difference is the transfer fee. You know, Colin Wirtz will cost 5, 6 times the price of what Cherki is available for. So for me, getting a deal done for Cherki is a no-brainer. So I'm praying because the rumors are suggesting that Liverpool are very interested in the player. So please, FSG, get this deal done as soon as possible because I feel like you've got a player that can come in and play at number 10 role whenever called upon. But also, he could be the long-term successor to Mohamed Salah because he's comfortable on that right-hand side. And I feel like he could be the guy that takes the mantelpiece if Salah decides to leave in the future. So for me, it's a deal for now and for the long term. So we need to try and make it happen. On to the next rumor, and another Lyon player, and he goes by the name of Malick Fofana. Now he's currently being linked with a £40 million move to Liverpool. The Lyon winger has had a good season playing left wing. From what I've seen, he looks like a very talented player, a great turn of speed. Only concern would be, would he be able to adapt to the physicality of the Premier League? But I still feel like there's a player that can develop into, a really good player in sort of the world form. Um, but he would only be a signing if Luis Diaz was to leave the club. And I also believe that if Liverpool were to sell Diaz, they might not want to find a ready-made replacement or an upgrade to Gakpo. I think they'd go for this type of profile, a young and up-and-coming left winger to challenge Gakpo, but also be a little bit different, where he's not like for like stylistically of what Gakpo brings to the table, more of an out-and-out winger who brings pace down that left-hand side, and that's why I'm so excited by the prospects of having Frimpong, Gyokeres, because they are going to bring pace down the flanks, and that's something we've lacked. Um, in our squad, and especially in evidence of what we've seen this season against low blocks, that kind of speed will help create openings for our attackers, and I feel like it will add a different dimension to our game. So, in terms of this month, it's one to watch on the basis, you know, that Luis Diaz leaves. I don't see him joining if Luis Diaz and Gakpo still at the club, for example. So definitely name to remember because I do feel like, if it's not Liverpool, he will join another club at some point. This season, he's scored 11 goals, 6 assists in 40 appearances, so not too bad in terms of stats. Uh, but yeah, I think he'd only be a worthy signing if we were to part ways with Luis Diaz this summer. Next rumor is Viktor Gyokeres, who's been linked with a move to Liverpool and also the Premier League, with Arsenal being a potential suitor as well. Now, I've made comments about Gyökeres in the past, and I've always said that I have slight reservations about the player, only because I'm not entirely sure if he's suited to the Premier League. I know he's a former Coventry player and has played English football at Championship level, but the Premier League level is completely different. So I like what he brings to the table. I just don't know if he will handle the physicality of the league, and also if he is tactically good enough to lead the line, because it's not just about scoring goals when you're a Liverpool striker. You've got to be tactically aware of your surroundings in terms of holding the ball, laying it off, and sometimes you have to drop deep in order to gain the ball and set up other players around you on the pitch. Does he have that sort of game in it? Does he have that in his locker? I don't know. I'm not sure if he does. But what I would say is, if we're not able to get Isak, Alvarez, or Osimhen, who I regard probably the best strikers that are available in Europe right now, I think he has to be the next one in line. I think he's the one that we should target, because me personally, I don't want us to sign another project striker. I don't want another Darwin Núñez type striker. I don't want a Sesko at the club. I like Ekitike, but he's still quite raw for me. So if it was to be Ekitike, I'd be pleased. But I'm expecting us to go for the ready-made striker now. I don't want us to, you know, go for potential. I want, quality right now. Gyökeres could be a risk because of the reservations that I mentioned earlier on, but it could be a risk worth taking, because if you look at his stats this season, they are out of this world. 50 appearances, 52 goals, and 13 assists. So that's 65 GA in 50 appearances, which is insane. And yes, the argument will be that it was in the Portuguese league, but he still got to bang them in. You know, Nunes came from the Portuguese league, but his numbers weren't this level or anything to that scale. So you got to look at the player. I do feel like he's a good player. He may be suited more for an Arsenal team, if I'm being honest. But if he was to be available and Liverpool thought, you know what, he's worth the punt, then why not? I think he's around available for around £50 million as well. So for that kind of money, it would be a good deal to conclude. So let's see, one to watch, because he's definitely going to make a move this summer, whether he joins Liverpool or another Premier League club. I do expect him to see Gyökeres in the Premier League next season. Another player that we've probably been linked to in the past, but it's resurfaced once again, and that is Gertruda. Now, rumors are circulating that he was a player that travelled to Liverpool yesterday for talks. I think the journalist might have got him wrong for Frimpong, because that's not what I've heard. That's new news for me there. And he's also been regarded as an alternative to Frimpong, which for me makes no sense, because they're different types of players. Yes, they're both fullbacks, but Frimpong is an electric fullback with pace and directness. Gertruda is the complete opposite. He's a defensive fullback who can play centre back and left back if required, and is more defensive minded, has decent ball playing ability, can invert as well, which he has done for Feyenoord, but he's not a like for like alternative for Frimpong. So very strange. I don't feel like there's any truth to this rumor at all. Um, for argument's sake, if there was anything, to this rumor and Liverpool wanted to sign him, I would only sign a player like Buchuda if it meant that he was coming in to replace someone. So, for example, if Joe Gomez was leaving, Buchuda would be the perfect replacement, because they're pretty much like for like. They're players that are good defensively, but because they unfortunately are jack of all trades, where they can play in different positions, they've been labeled as more squad players. So for me, he would be a good squad player to have in a squad. But I'd rather stick with Joe Gomez, and you know that might be a bit of sentiment there, because I like the player and I've enjoyed into the how he progressed since he joined the club 10 years ago. But I still feel like he can bring something to the table. He brings that experience and stability to the back line. Of course, the only issue is availability. He's not always available. So if that's something that frustrates Arne Slot, then we could part ways with Gomez, but then Vitrina as a replacement will make sense. But hopefully it's not a crazy deal, because he only just moved to Red Bull Leipzig last summer. So If it's at a cut price, then maybe it's something we can go for. But at this stage, I'm a bit 50-50, especially the sort of the angle that he's a Frimpong alternative. I think that's all wrong. So yeah, whoever reported that, I think got that aspect of the rumor completely wrong there. Next player is Dean Huijsen. Now, of course, a player that we've been continuously linked with, but eh, we might not mention him on the Transfer Talk show anytime soon because there's been some breaking news earlier today from Fabrizio Romano, uh, and that is, let me bring up on screen for you guys, and that is, um, Bournemouth have approved Real Madrid conditions for the Huijsen deal with £50 million release clause to be paid by the end of 2026. Deal done club to club. So looks like Bournemouth and Real Madrid have already had discussions with regards to completing this move. So it's a bit of a concern and final green light needed to proceed and seal the deal with players camp as Houston always gave priority to Madrid. And that's not a huge surprise. And I have mentioned that in my previous show that if there is genuine interest from Real Madrid, I think that's the club he joins. There's too many deciding factors for him, i.e., he's just become a Spain international. So if one of the biggest clubs from your country wants to sign you, you'll most likely go there. It just enhances his opportunities for the national team to be a mainstay in that team and also playing for Real Madrid, one of the biggest clubs in world football, is an appeal itself. So yeah, unfortunately, I do see this still happening. I do see Hoyson leaving Bournemouth for Real Madrid, which is a shame because I had high hopes that Liverpool were ready to sign this defender. But unfortunately, doesn't look like that's going to be the case. But you know, we'll see what the future holds. Are we going to pursue with another target? Only time will tell. But as it stands, it looks like the deal involving Hoyson to Liverpool is a no show. So Liverpool need to move on and try and look down that pecking order of the shortlist and start targeting another centre back. And speaking of another centre back, a name that has popped up as an alternative to Hoyson is Thomas Aroha. Now, I'll be brutally honest, guys, not familiar with the player whatsoever. I watched the compilation earlier on today. Looks decent, very good on the ball. I'm not sure if he's good enough or ready to make that step up into the Premier League. He, after watching him, I know it's compilation, so I can't, give you a thorough analysis, but he doesn't move me. I don't feel like he's that defender that stands out, and I feel like, you know, he might just look good playing in the Portuguese league, but can he reflect that into playing at the Premier League? I think there'll be question marks with regards to that. I don't see him being a commanding centre back as well, which I feel like is the profile that we need in our squad. Um, so I'm not sure if he is a hoisting alternative. I don't know why that's been labelled. Apparently, he's available for £67 million, which is a huge price for a player in my eyes that's unknown. In terms of what he brings to the table, he's a centre back by trade, but can also play right back. But for me, yeah, not the player that we should be targeting for that price as well. There is better options elsewhere. So for me, no, this is the no go for me. Now, Ibrahima Kanate. Um, the current rumor is that contract talks have not progressed between Liverpool and Kanate's reps. So that is a huge concern because his contract expires this time next year in 2026. So the big question is, what do we do with Ibu Kanate? Do we keep him for one more season and then let him leave on a free, kind of like what we're doing with Trent Alexander-Arnold? Or do we sell him this summer, cash in on him, and use that money to fund a new centre back in the squad? Now, feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you guys think. My thoughts about Kanate, if he doesn't want to commit to the club and he's not willing to sign the contract because they Liverpool have offered a contract. There are terms that are placed for him. And if he's saying, look, that's not good enough, it doesn't meet his valuation, then that's him pretty much saying he doesn't want to stay at the club. And if that is the case, as much as it hurts to say out loud, I think we need to sell him and cash in on him this summer. Which, yeah, it's a shame because I really like Ibu Konate. As a person, he seems like such a lovely guy. Like to the way he brings to the pitch on it on his top day, he could be one of the best centre backs in world football. That's how much I rate him. And he's already formed such a great partnership with Van Dijk. Uh, you, you wouldn't want that to break apart because of this contractual situation. I think he's been asking in the region of 200K to per week for his salary. I think that should be given because it's not a lot in terms of what the elite defenders are earning in this day and age. So you got to go with what the market price is, and I feel like he does deserve um, to get an improved term in his contract. Now, the big question would be if that was the case where Liverpool, like, you know what, we've got to sell him, let's get some cash for him, who would be signed? Now, I think if you're looking within the Premier League, first name that'll probably pop up is Mark Gay. For me, that's not the guy I want. I think he's a solid defender, but I would find him as a, I don't mean any disrespect, I would find it as a bit of an underwhelming signing as a replacement for Konate. I feel like Konate is levels above Gay. Gay, for me, if he was to join Liverpool, should be third choice, not alongside Van Dijk, in my opinion. So, you know, Gay's actually been linked with the club, so there could be some truth to that rumor, but that wouldn't be my choice. My first choice, or okay, I'll phrase it two ways. So my dream choice would be Bastoni, which is probably no surprise. I'm sure that's a lot of people's dream choice. Because I've always said if Liverpool were to sign a left-footed centre back, that would mean that Van Dijk has to move over to the right side of the centre back position. And there's only one player for me that, will move Van Dijk to the right side, and that's Bastoni. That's how much I rate Bastoni. He's an elite defender, great on the ball. The reading of his game is different level, and he's so multifunctional where he can play in a back three, in a back four, can even play left back and make it seem so effortless. So he's very, very talented. And for me, one of the best centre backs in world football right now. He cost a bit, I think so, but I think we can definitely test the waters with around like a £60 million kind of deal, especially if you're linked with what's his name, Thomas Roja, who's available for that same kind of price. Put that money on Bastoni, and then you're laughing. So that would be the dream signing. And we were heavily linked to the player last summer. We were linked to him in January as well, even. Um, I think during the season there was issues between Bastoni and Inter Milan in terms of I think their contract situation. Um, so maybe that hasn't been resolved, but we can definitely test the waters. One selling point could be him being reunited with Federico Chiesa, who is actually one of his close friends. So I'd keep Chiesa for next season to make sure we get Bastoni. You know, you got to do this thing to get things done, and I'd keep Chiesa to get Bastoni. But that would be the dream sign. I don't know how realistic that would be now. I think if he was unsettled at the club, then he would have maybe um, pursued other teams. But at the same time, I do feel like he's a player that will very unlikely to leave Italy. I feel like he'd probably be settled to play at Inter or he'll join another Italian team. But I'm sure we all thought that Chiesa and end up joining Liverpool. So you just never know. But that would be the dream signing. The realistic signing to sign a player that replaces Konate for me would be Diomande from Sporting Lisbon. Now, if you haven't seen him play, make sure you check out a few compilations because I feel like he would be a like for like replacement. Very, very strong, very, very physical. can play in the back three, can play in the back four, can even play as a defensive midfielder if needed. Um, he has very similar attributes to Konate, so I feel like that would be a great replacement for Konate, and I think he's available for around 35, 40 million as well. So he wouldn't break the bank, and I feel like it would be a smart signing if we were to part ways with Konate. But you know, I really want us to give Konate a new contract, and I would like to see him stay at the club, and one day even become vice captain or captain for the team because he's that kind of figure. He's a leader on the pitch, and I feel like players respect him. He's a very likable person, as you probably see in the training videos that they show on the YouTube channel. So for me, we have to try our best to try and keep him on board. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. But I don't like the idea of losing Konate, and I'm sure many of you fans would agree as well. Now, another player that Liverpool have been linked with is Rodrigo. Now, I mentioned him last week, but this week rumors are circulating that he wants to leave Real Madrid. He's not happy with his treatment there. I think he refused to play the other day in El Clasico, but then it was revealed that it was because he wasn't fully fit, so therefore he made himself unavailable. So he didn't say, "I'm not playing for you guys," but he said, "Look, I'm not fully fit. I'd rather rest this one out." So big question is he a realistic target for Liverpool, and would I sign him? I don't think he's realistic, to be honest with you. He would cost an arm and a leg. Like he'd cost around £100 million if we were to even go near him. So, but if he's making a stance to say I want to leave the club, then Liverpool would be one of the interested teams. It would also depend from a financial point of view what the Liverpool team I saw, or the when I say team, the Liverpool hierarchy are prioritizing, because for me the priority is the striker this season, not a left winger. If Diaz was to leave, we'd get a good amount of money for Diaz. Like if he went to Saudi, for example, I'm expecting 70 million. If he stayed in Europe, then I'm expecting probably 50 to 60 million. So that money could be used to finance a move for a Rodrigo, where he would be an upgrade to Diaz and probably would be a starter ahead of Gakpo. But I think if they were to sell Diaz, they'd go for a different profile altogether. So I don't think there's any truth to this rumor. Would I sign him? I think he's a good player, but I don't know if he's an actual upgrade in our team. Um, I don't know because for Real Madrid he played predominantly the right wing. I know he's actually traditionally a left winger. He'd be a good signing. Would I be overjoyed? I would not be. I would be happy. I'd be pleased that we've signed a profile of a player like Rodrigo from Real Madrid as well. So hopefully there won't be any PTSD of a player leaving us to go to Madrid because he's left there in the first place. So I guess that would be a plus point. But yeah, I think it'd be a good signing, but I just don't see it being realistic. And with the money involved nowadays, I feel it's very unlikely. But look, you never know, because this move might gather pace in the following weeks, because if he is really unsettled at the club and he wants to move on, I could definitely see Liverpool being one of the clubs interested. So let's see. At this stage, very, very unlikely in my opinion. And the final rumor of today's show is Chiesa and Lookman. So apparently there's rumors circling in Italy um that Chiesa would be involved in a swap deal with Lookman going the other way, sorry, and joining Liverpool. Now there's no transfer fee involved, so my thoughts on that rumor, I don't feel like there's any truth to it. It sounds like a FIFA career mode type of transfer there. Secondly, I think they value Lookman quite highly at Atalanta. I think they was interested in him last year, and I think they were setting a price of around £60 million. So if you look in that way, then we'd get more value for money. But I wouldn't go for this deal. To be fair, I feel like it feels a bit forced because they have an interest in one of our players. they're like, "Oh, we'll give you Lookman. He's a good player, and he'll fit the bill as well." I don't know because, like I said about the Rodrigo deal, if Lookman was to join, Lookman's best position is on that left wing. He can play right wing. I know he's played there at his previous club in England, but his best work is on that left hand side. So if Diaz wasn't to leave, then we've got three left wingers. That's too much. So this one feels a bit of a forced kind of deal. Uh, Now in terms of Chiesa, of course, Cheeky said that if Bastoni wanted to come, then I'd keep Chiesa on board. But honestly speaking, I don't know if there is a future for Chiesa at the club just because of what we've seen this season. Arne Slot doesn't seem to favor the player. He hasn't played him in that many games, so that would be a concern in terms of his future at the club. So that's the basis that I'm going on. That he hasn't played much. He's not been selected much by the coach. Therefore, he might be surplus to requirements. So in terms of this deal, I don't see it being a starter if I'm being honest. And yeah, I wouldn't go for it. But feel free to drop a comment and let me know. So that is it in terms of our transfer talk for this week. I can see we have a few comments there, so I'm just going to go through them quickly. Uh, GTV Football Channel says, big up, brother, big up yourself, GTV. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your comment. And please, guys, make sure to subscribe to GTV Football Channel. G doing as much content as I know in terms of the content creation world, doing videos on a regular basis and producing some great content as well. Not just Liverpool related, if you're a football fan, that is the one for you to go to. So please make sure you subscribe to his channel. Azzy225, be yourself. As he says, Frimpong would be better. He's lightning fast. Yeah, he's electric. So definitely a signing for us to go for. Osuji Tony, big yourself, Osuji. He said, "Do you think we will get a striker if we sign Wirtz?" That's what I highlighted earlier on because let's say there was some truth to this Florian Wirtz rumor. We've blown the bank balance on one player in terms of 120 million pounds for Florian Wirtz. So where does that leave for us to get a striker? If we were to get a striker, it wouldn't be the Isak, the Alves, or that kind of level. It will have to be someone down the pecking order. So, and I don't mean to be disrespectful when I name these players, but the likes of your Delaps and maybe even a Jonathan David on a free transfer, that could be an option that the club go for. So if there is any truth to it, I would assume it's unlikely. In terms of the sort of the revenue that the club have generated in the last 12 months or so, we could actually probably go on and spend a lot of money and not break any sort of financial fair play or PSR rules. Like we would have done it within the remit that has been set out for all of the teams in the Premier League. So instead of spending money, we can spend money. We've done everything what's been required for a football operation, but just because we can spend it doesn't mean we will spend it, or we might not even have that money to spend. 300-400 million pounds. So because if you're going to sign Florian Wirtz, you're going to have to sign a striker probably for the same kind of range, and we have other areas to address. Left back, Frimpong would be your right back solution there. Another midfielder, in my opinion. Another attacking mid. Well, Wirtz will be your attacking midfielder. So yeah, so you still have to attain those type of players, and for me, it's a lot of work. So I doubt it. I think the priority should be the striker because with the number 10 role, we have players that can, you know, I know people aren't completely won over by Szoboszlai, but I do feel like he does put in a good shift for the team. And look, if we can get Cherki for like 22 million pounds, that's a cheaper alternative. And I feel like that's a player that can definitely, produce the kind of output that Wirtz has been doing. So I would go for Cherki. That'd be the better option. But when a player like Florian Wirtz is available, and you're known as one of the top clubs, you have to kind of show interest. You got to show, you know, that eagerness to sign a player like that because they don't come up in the market that often. And that's what we're probably doing right now, if I'm being brutally honest. We probably understood that he's, looking to join a different club next season. So with beforehand, I'll be like, yeah, we're interested. Like, come over to Liverpool. We'll have a discussion with you, and that's it. Monitor FC. It looks like what we're doing right now. So that's why I don't feel like it's a realistic option. Cherki seems like the likely one, which I'm hoping and praying for. To be honest with you, uh, Nicodemus, big up yourself. He says, "Yo, where's Wirtz linked? Is it City?" So he's been linked with Liverpool today. Man City as well. Um, that's the two English teams that he's been linked with, and he's also been linked with a move to Bayern Munich. So three clubs that are in the race for the German midfielder. I feel like he'll probably end up at Bayern Munich. I think he'll remain in Germany or he joins City. I just don't think Liverpool is the realistic option for him to go to, only because I don't feel like we'll spend that kind of money on a player when we have other areas to strengthen. So who knows? But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to GTV Football Channel, Azzy25 or Suji and Nicodemus for your comments. Appreciate your engagement as always, guys. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. In terms of upcoming content, I will be doing a match preview of Brighton versus Liverpool. I don't really know why I'm doing it now because for two reasons. The match is on Monday, but we'll still do it, based on our normal scheduling on a Thursday night. But also, the guys are living it up in Dubai, and the coach is in Ibiza, celebrating, with his mates and with Wayne Lineker and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if the players are going to be in the right state of mind to play against Brighton. But hey, we'll do the match preview. Um, I'll try and be as realistic as I can in terms of my predictions. But make sure to tune in. That show will begin tomorrow at 11 p.m. UK time. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.